Welcome to my channel, Ken here. Today I'm going to talk to you about what it means to be a freelancer and the experiences and advice that I've received over the past decades. Number one, before I talk about my 3 rules, the first thing I want to say above all else is don't stop learning. This is the beauty in general about this industry, whether you're in the entertainment industry or in the music industry. There's always something new to learn. This is one of the best things about this career is there's always something new to learn. Now, to my rules. Rule number 1. You got to ask yourself what you're doing. What is the task that you're doing? What is the gig that you're involved in? So number 1 is resources. What are the resources involved in this in order to accomplish your task? Let's say you're doing an orchestral piece and you don't have an orchestra at hand, but they demand that you put what we call sweetness in there. Sweetness is a real instrument somewhere along the line, like a real violin, real percussion, something. Now, are they providing the resources for you, or do you have to actually pay for that yourself out of pocket? Well, that is a question you have to ask yourself when and before you get the gig. The second one is time. How much time do you have to do it? How much time does it take for you to do it to begin with? Is it a task that's in your wheelhouse, or are you just winging it? Because if you're winging it, it's going to take a lot longer. Do you have resources? Back to our resources. Do you have people to help you do this task, this gig? In other words, do you have an assistant, or do you have a producer involved? Do you have to mix it yourself, or are you sending it out to a mixer? All those things are part of the equation. And then the third one is the very task at hand, the very gig itself. Is it an orchestral piece? Is it a rock and roll thing? Is it a heavy metal thing? Those are not created equal. It takes me a lot longer to do an orchestral piece than it does a heavy metal or a rock and roll piece because of the sheer amounts of instruments involved in an orchestral piece, and also because I'm not a violin player, for example. So it takes me longer than it does playing a guitar if it's in my wheelhouse, which we'll get back to later. So that's rule number 1. Now, with these kind of things, there are overlaps between them, and that's an important thing to understand. Please check the graphic below. Rule number 2, why are you doing this gig? That's an important question, especially before you take on a gig. So you won't be overwhelmed, or it doesn't take time away from other gigs that you might be doing, or it's just too much work, or it's just not going to help you in certain ways. Are you doing this for your soul, your artistry, your heart? Are you doing this because you want to have artistry involved? Are you doing this because it's a passion project? That's number 1. That's one leg of this rule. Are you doing this gig? This is the second leg. Are you doing this for money? That's an important question too. Are you doing this because you need to make money? You need to pay your bills. You need to buy equipment. You need to have a salary. You need to, put gas in your car. You need to So you have to ask yourself if you're doing it for that reason. Number 3. Are you doing this to advance your career, meaning get better gigs, higher paying gigs, get more resources, and so forth and so on, get more people to help you? All these things combine into what I call the latter leg, because the latter leg is important because sometimes you need to stretch a little bit, both artistically and financially and all that. You need to take a hit on some of those things in order to advance yourself. You need to get the credits. You need to get the publicity. You need to get involved with new people. You need to create relationships with new people and other people that might help your career. So those are important things. So those 3 things kind of go together and you ask yourself, what am I doing with this gig? And this becomes really important as you get into the nitty-gritty of it, because a lot of the times things get really uncomfortable, or it might be very demanding of your time and effort, and you might have to do things that you feel very uncomfortable doing, or you might be blessed or have perks involved here where you're meeting a person that you really hit it off with, and that's a thing of beauty where the creative minds kind of go up to a whole nother level, and they push the right buttons on you, and they inspire you, and you inspire them, and things like that. And that's a beautiful thing. I've had a few of those experiences, and that's really, really rewarding at the end. Rule number 3. Is it good? Is it cheap? Or is it fast? Or slow, if you wish. That's an equation that you have to always take into consideration with anything you do. Because if you want it good, and you have no time to do it, and you want to do it cheap, that's impossible, right? It should be impossible. Because you're punishing yourself that way, I think. If you want it good, and you want it cheap, it's not going to be fast. If you want it fast, and you want it good, it shouldn't be cheap. Because it's going to take over your life, right? You need to still pay bills, and you still need to work on good artistry. So something has to give, and that's what this equation is about. One of the 3 has to give, but there is overlap. But if you want all 3, that should be impossible. That's what I've developed over the last decades when it comes to how to handle the various jobs that you get in. And if you keep these things in mind, especially while you're working or when you're negotiating or when you're looking for stuff, is it a good fit? This is what it means, in my opinion, is it a good fit? Does it mean that I have the time it takes or the resources it takes or the interest, meaning your artistry, and those kind of things all add up to you having a clear head when you take on a gig. So that's my opinion, that's my experience, and that's what I've collected over the last few years. Now I'm going to get into greater depth on later videos on this. But for now, subscribe and like if you find this helpful. Until next video, take care, man.